Okay. Is my mic running? I think so. Let's do a test. Okay, looks like it's picking up. All right, 2 minutes in. Nobody's joined. Oh, first person. Hello, hello. Just had to get myself some water, because I'm probably going to be talking for a little while. Okay, who we got in the chat? I'm seeing this name that I can't pronounce. I'm assuming it's a bot. Okay, who we got in the chat? Hey, I'm picking myself up. Made me jump. All right, it's a quiet one so far. Yes, J9898. I'm all right, buddy. How are you? Thanks for joining. Oh, I just got a bunch of messages come through. Right. Yes, Boxing on the Edge. How are you doing, bro? It's good to have you here. Jay, what are my thoughts on Boots Ennis? I still haven't had a chance to watch much of him, but I've probably seen about 5 rounds of his fights. And you know what? I think athletically, which is no secret, athletically he's pretty good. I haven't seen enough of him to like give a proper informed assessment of him, of his technical ability. But I do think I think he understands what he's doing. The only thing is, I'm always a little bit cautious when it comes to the prospects, especially young American prospects, because we're living through the post Mayweather era, and sometimes there can be in these prospects, they can favor kind of flash and what's the word I'm looking for, and creativity a bit too much. Anyone who's listened to my videos or spoken to me about boxing knows that I like to um what's the word? I like to go over the science first. I believe that the fundamentals are within the science, and then you can become an artist once you've appreciated the science. But that being said, I haven't seen enough of John Enes, so for me, the jury's still out. But I'd be interested to hear your take, just to maybe you can point me in the direction of a particular fight that you thought was particularly that was good or whatnot. I'm all ears. Boxing on the edge. I'm good, thank you, bro. I'm good. Um, Standard Wednesday, got to get a live stream in. But yeah, I can't complain. Doing well. Just hope that this live stream fills out again, because I think we had a good time. Uh, the last one, it was like 20 people here. It was a good chat. Uh, no, I haven't gone over Brook, Khan versus Brook yet. I just recorded my video that I'm going to upload probably after this. Um, maybe I'll wait for a couple more people to join, if they do join. If they don't, then I'll go over it now. But yeah, I might just hold out, because I imagine a lot of people are going to be asking me about that one. But Jay, I think Enes is the most athletically gifted welterweight since Prime Manny. Well, that's quite an accolade. How about? I mean, see, the thing is with Manny, he was explosive and he was quick, obviously powerful as well. But I feel like with Manny, his balance wasn't the best. Um, and yeah, because of his balance, I feel like that kind of took away from it. But yeah, maybe Ennis, from what I've seen of him, the highlights and stuff, he does look like a true athlete. Like he could probably apply himself to any sport he wanted. He just happened to choose boxing. Boxing on the edge, Brook looked pretty sharp in the open workout. Yeah, he did. I saw that. He he did look good, because the thing is, once I watched that one, I just for like reference, I went back to his public workout against Spence, and of course the context is different, because before the Spence fight he'd just come down from middleweight, so you have to imagine he'd be more sluggish. But that was, by public workout standards, that was the sharpest I've seen Brook look at public workout. He did. It was like nothing new in terms of the moves he was doing, the techniques he was using, but he was going and going and going and going. Looked very sharp, and hopefully that reflects in his form. We want to see these guys as sharp as possible. What do you think, boxing on the edge? What do you think about Khan and him in the public workout? That'd be interesting. Jay, do you think timing always beats speed in boxing? It really depends. It depends, because the old saying is that speed beats power, timing beats speed. But what happens if you have an athlete or a fighter who has speed naturally and understands timing? I'd agree. If you have two guys on a similar level and one has speed and the other has timing, it depends on the utilization of speed. Because if you're like people, they give a baseball analogy where they say, this guy's got a wicked fastball. He can break 100 kilometers with his fastball. But if you always use it and the ball always follows that same path, that same trajectory, then you're not going to catch the batter out. It's kind of the same thing in boxing. If you're quick like Amir Khan, but he's not intelligent with the way he uses his speed because he fights in a very uniform pattern. Doesn't really set up his engagements that well. He kind of, it's almost like he's asking to be timed by someone like Brook who does have good timing. And that being said, Jay, I, I can't hold it against you if you're picking Brook. You know, this fight really is a 50-50. People don't want to give it credit, but it is. You know, they say, oh, these guys are washed up. They're this, they're that. Yeah, but they both are. So it evens out, you know. Ain't seen it yet. Gonna watch it now. Yeah. I mean, that Khan looks a bit. Khan's never had like the strongest build, but he looks slim. You know, he looks. That's what I was wondering. Maybe he's trained a bit too hard because he's been in the mountains in Colorado, and people from America who've been to Colorado, they tell you that the altitude there is no joke. They've got this thing, I think, or this mountain. Is it mountain? I believe it's the Manatee Incline, and it's just brutal, absolutely brutal. Like you get a workout just walking up it. So maybe Khan's dealing with that. Maybe he's trained too hard. You know, he wants to take on Terence Crawford and join Team Crawford. Oh yeah, get me ready for Kell Brook. Maybe you're not ready for that. You have to imagine that Crawford's been training like that for his entire career, or the majority of it. You can't necessarily just jump into someone else's training camp and train the way they train and hope to get through it. So, yeah, there's still the weighings. So that'll be interesting. Jay, yeah, Khan throws every punch at the same speed, doesn't vary the punch cadence. There you go. That's it. Not every. It's like it's the same thing with power. If you throw every shot with power, it not only is it slower, but it's it's predictable. So that's why when you hear people say like they fight a guy who's supposed to be a puncher, and they say his power isn't it's inconsistent. Sometimes he hits you and it really hurts and you really feel it, rattles you. Other times he hits you, you don't really feel it. In my mind, like based on what I look for in a good fighter, that's a good thing because it shows that this fighter understands how to mix up their punches and mix up the power, mix up the speed, and use that to, as you say, vary that punch cadence. Understanding that, okay, I'm going to use these faster, lighter, more direct shots to set up my bigger ones. Because isn't that elementary boxing? Isn't that what you're taught when your first couple of times in the gym? So yeah, but Khan, he doesn't understand that. He's just like, I'm really fast. I'm going to be really fast all the time. Okay. Boxing on the edge, bro. I've been there. Walked up a flight of stairs and I was exhausted. True story. Yeah, that's it. So you don't even have to listen to me. You've got first-hand experience, and I can imagine that's hard. I imagine. Even I don't know what Florida's like what the altitude is like, but even just the climate, because obviously I'm in the UK, and the last time I went to Florida was in 2014, and at the time I was still boxing, and it was brutal. After being in Florida for a week, I came back. Ah, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Just the difference in climates is ugh. A great holiday, but when you're training, you feel it. You feel the difference. Jordan Anderson, yes, yes. Good to have you here. What boxing style would you adopt if you was a pro? Good question. Good question. I mean, I can dare to dream, can't I? So, you know what? I don't want to cop out because I feel like when you get to a certain age and experience level, you start to kind of dispense with the idea of uh, styles, you know. And I feel like when you understand the principles of boxing, like I always say when I'm teaching people, whenever you're unsure about your development and what you should be doing, just remember the saying, boxing is about hitting and not getting hit. because that tells you everything you need to know. Because from that, you can basically extrapolate the question, how do I offend my opponent effectively while defending myself effectively? And that ethos will basically govern how you fight. If you hope to be successful, if you hope to be better than your opponent. And so, yeah, I think early on, I mean, I didn't go on to achieve anything in boxing, but I always had it in my mind, like, what kind of fighter do I want to be? What kind of fighter can I be? Because it's easy to look at, everyone looks up to Mike Tyson. Anthony Joshua looked up to Mike Tyson, but he's 6'6" and probably has like an 82-inch reach. He can't necessarily fight like Mike Tyson, but he can still take away some uh, there are still some takeaways in terms of the principles. For example, Mike Tyson is one of the best aggressive front foot counterpunchers in boxing history. If you understand how that works for him and what he does to become that, you can apply it to your own game. So a bit of a long-winded answer, but and a bit of a cop-out as well. But the boxing style I'd look to employ if I was a pro is, how can I basically hit my opponent without him hitting me? And within the rules, of course, within the rules. So J9898. So that's an interesting question. Nobody's actually asked me that before. And I'm not really got people clamoring to find out all about me. But I boxed, and it's a weird one. A lot of people kind of they're like, oh, wow, that's strange. But I started boxing when I was, how old? I was 13. I was 13. So for the best part of a decade. But see, the thing is, officially, I haven't had any fights. I boxed consistently from 2012, kind of, to 2017. So it's been a long time since I've hung up the gloves. And there are a lot of reasons. Maybe I'll get into reasons as to why, but there are a lot of factors that played into it. But yeah, since 2017 or 2016, I formally became a coach, and I kind of transitioned out of it into being a coach. But yeah, I didn't win anything, didn't do anything really, but I basically just spent a long time going to different gyms. I was basically like a gym fighter when you think about it. At one point, I was like 16, so this was when I was in college, and I was, just to give you an idea of what my boxing life or career was like, even though I didn't really get anything out of it. I was 16. I was at college, so I was studying. College, in case there are any Americans, college is what comes after secondary school, which I believe is high school. But if you're in the UK, you know what college is. So 16 to 18. I'd train on a Monday and train on a Tuesday, train on a Wednesday twice, because I'd have a strength and conditioning session at college, and then I'd go to the gym and spar like I would on Monday and Tuesday. I'd have Thursday off, but then I'd go in Friday, and I'd kind of do my own active rest kind of training on Saturday and Sunday. So it was busy. And bear in mind, I'm 16. I stayed at 67 kilos, which is 147 pounds ish, from the age of 15 through to the age of 17 going on 18. So yeah, that was what I was going through as a teen, all for the love of boxing, and I didn't get anything out of it. But don't let that stop you from pursuing boxing. Gehihib, if I got that right, I think I deserve some credit. But hey, man, hello, good to have you here. Hope your channel grows quick. You've got a really relaxed tone, makes a change to the endless rants and whinging on other channels. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. Don't get it wrong, I can rant and I can whinge, but I do get told that I have a nice kind of vocal cadence and vocabulary. So if that makes for pleasurable hearing and listening, feel free to subscribe, and thanks for the support. Mr. Relax. Yes, yes. Good to have you back. I feel like you've been here every stream. It's good to have you, man. Really enjoy watching Lerone Richards and Michael McKinson boxing. Lerone Richards, yeah. The first time I watched one of his fights in its entirety was his last one against, is the guy's name Gorgola, something like that. And I was impressed. The only thing is he lacks power. If he had power, like a good punch, because I think he's got like less than 5 knockouts. But if he had power, if he worked on his technique, he would he'd be a beast, because technically very good, very sound, and very impressive. It's good to see from a young guy. I'm assuming he's young. He looks young. Boxing on the edge. Where did you pick up that slight Eastern European style from? Oh, but so for those who don't know, Boxing on the Edge, and if you guys haven't subscribed to Boxing on the Edge, do it now, because great channel, honestly, one of my favorite channels to watch. So he recently, Boxing on the Edge recently saw a video of me on the pads, and that was actually filmed yesterday. And before that pad session, I haven't trained, as I say, properly since 2017. So it's been, best part of 4 years. And yeah, I was shaking off the rust and going through the pads. But to answer your question, Boxing on the Edge, I've how can I say it? I've been coached by a lot of people. I've been to a lot of places, as I'm sure you have. You travel the gyms, you work with different coaches, you learn this, you learn that, you trial it. It doesn't work, it does work. And at one point, I had a Russian coach, a guy called Igor, who I haven't seen for many years, and I'd say he wasn't my main coach, but he was a coach who I worked with for a short period of time, and he had a big influence on my style, basically. Like the stuff he taught me, even though it was in a short space of time, it really stuck with me. The way he was able to break it down, just just gelled with me a lot. But as I say, he wasn't my main coach, but serious hombre. Yeah. And I don't actually know what happened to him. He kind of just disappeared. I don't know whether he went back to Russia or, yeah, well, wish him all the best, Igor, udachi. But Jay, I think each fighter's style is somewhat based on their personality. Very good point. Chisora is a naturally aggressive person, and it makes sense as to why he's a pressure fighter. I could give other examples. Yeah, indeed. That's a very good point. And it's something I've actually thought about a lot, is because typically you do kind of see some resemblance in a fighter's personality and their style. So the only, I want to think of exceptions, though. I don't think there are many, because it is, it governs it, your personality. Like if you're a hot-headed young kid with loads of testosterone and you love fighting, you're not going to be too keen to be an apprehensive defensive boxer. You're going to Mike Tyson knockouts, Julian Jackson knockouts, Gerald McClellan knockouts. You want to learn to knock people out because you've got all this rage and energy and stuff. So yeah, you see it. Nigel Benn and Conor Benn, they're naturally very fiery characters, and you see it. Their movements are very energetic. Some people, they're more cerebral, a bit more slow paced, and they have a bit more of a slick, kind of calm style. So yeah, very good point. I think that's something that not many people talk about a lot. ATB Vids, respect to you, sir. Thank you for joining. I hope you can stay. Sports Fan One, what's good? What's good? I hope you can stay as well, buddy. It's good to have you here. I hope you're doing well. We're just shooting the shit, talking about some boxing. So, Boxing on the Edge. He's if this isn't a compliment, I don't know what is. Outmatch was looking like half Vladimir Klitschko or half Alexander Usyk. Well, that's you know what? I was thinking, I was watching it because I just filmed it for fun. I was just like, you know what? Let me go on the pads for the first time in a few years, and I filmed it and then I sent it to you. I was like, should I do a study on it? Should I study myself and like let people see it? I'm in two minds. You know what? You guys are my loyal subscribers. If you're not yet, then please do subscribe. But if you want to see me analyze myself, just hitting pads, that's all. If you want to see it, let me know and I'll do it. Jordan Anderson, Johnny Fisher versus Alan Babbitt. Who wins? That's kind of tough. That is tough. Johnny Fisher, very, very green. But from what I've seen, a very good athlete. He's naturally a big man. This is not someone who has to pump himself up to be a heavyweight or be a decent sized heavyweight. He's just a big guy. And those guys who have natural weight and they can move it quickly like Johnny Fisher can, always dangerous because it's like they have power built in. All he has to learn to do is just refine his technique, get some experience, and learn to use his athleticism, which he can do. Babbitt, on the other hand, not as good an athlete. He's more of a well-conditioned guy, because you can be an athlete but be in poor condition. You can also be in good condition but not be that much of an athlete. You know, it sounds weird, but it does happen. Babbitt, very hot-headed, probably quite intimidating for a lot of fighters. And I wouldn't be surprised if this fight happened this Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Fisher was maybe, a little bit shaken by Alan Babbitt's demeanor. But technically, I don't think there's very much between them. Maybe Alan Babbitt has a few more wrinkles to his game because I think he had a fairly long amateur career in Croatia. So I'd go with Babbitt just maybe. Just maybe. But good question. Dalmas, yes, bro. I hope you're doing well. Wanted to stop by real quick and pick up some knowledge. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's Wednesday. It's the peak of the week on a live stream with my gang. So it's good to have you guys here. You say you're stopping by real quick. I hope you can stay, but no worries if you can't. Life goes on. And of course, you can always pick up the recording. But if you want to leave some questions here and then head off and do what you got to do, I'll answer them. You can watch it back. But yeah, thanks for dropping by anyway, Dalmas. Sports Fan 1. I don't think people realize how good the Gongora win was by Richards. He had achieved the rare feat of being in the Who Needs Him club at both PBC. Yeah, see, Gongora, I don't rate him too highly. Like, I didn't have high hopes for Gongora, personally. He was a good fighter, though. He was like a good all-round fighter. But the fact is, there was supposed to be quite an experience gap between Gongora and Richards. And Richards, did he win that fight, 12-0? Because I remember watching it, and I was like, this is an easy fight. Easy fight. And, yeah, like, I expected Richards to win, but I didn't think he'd win that big. So, credit to him. Sean Porter is the only exception I can think of because he comes across as a calm person, but he fights somewhat aggressively. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sean Porter definitely, because he's a nice guy. He comes across as a nice guy, but then as soon as he's in the ring, I always call him the Tasmanian Devil because he's just wild. So yeah, that's a good example. Boxing on the Edge, post it on your channel. Maybe. I'll see. J9898. Thoughts on Jared Anderson? All right, so Jared Anderson is someone who I have seen a bit more of. I've seen more of Jared Anderson than I have of John Enes. Jared Anderson is, so going off his most recent fight against Deslenko, I believe that's his name. Jared Anderson, good athleticism, but there's a lot of I think it's a long way to go I think there's a long way to go. He's still quite rough around the edges. Particularly, I see. The thing is, it's usually when he's throwing punches, his power punching is, as I say, excuse me, it's a little bit rough, and I think he's still developing some coordination because he's young as well. I believe he's like 21, maybe. I'm not sure what his experience level is like, but he does have some good athleticism. He does, but and I'm trying to think: is he better as an orthodox or a southpaw? Because a lot of fighters these days they switch stances for the sake of it, whereas someone like Terence Crawford, he can switch and stay that particular stance for an entire fight and actually use it to uphold his strategy. He'll develop an entire strategy around it and an entire game plan. Whereas you get other fighters where they just kind of do it because they because they feel they have to, because a lot of other people do it. It's always about, why am I doing this? Does it work? Doesn't it work? It's situational. But I'm kind of waffling right now. But Jared Anderson, I don't think he has a bright future, but you just have to remember that he's got a long way. And the heavyweight division, at least in its current state, is pretty stacked. But I don't see why he couldn't become a top dog in the future, as long as he's brought along the right way. Do you see Luke Campbell ever reaching British level? Luke Campbell, I believe, is quite a way beyond British level, at least when he was fighting. But then I've seen your message, Campbell Hatton, which I'm assuming you meant to write the first time. Yeah, here we go. Campbell Hatton. Do I ever see Campbell Hatton reaching British level? You guys want me to go on another rant on a Campbell Hatton? At this point, based on what I've seen of Campbell Hatton, I'd be quite surprised if he did. Just being honest, nothing personal. I just don't think he's that good. I don't think he's got any athleticism that's worth any note. His technique is pretty amateurish. I said it in the last line. Yeah, said it in the last live stream that he doesn't look like he's having his early pro fights. He looks like he's having his early amateur fights. And now it's easy for me to sit behind my my laptop and my little shit YouTube channel and say that, but it's just the truth. It's what I see. Their prospects much better than him. So if Campbell Hatton reached British level and maybe even broke British level and say won the British title outright, he'd get a lot of respect from me. I'll tell you that. All right, I'm a bit slow. ATB vids. Have you any interest seeing Fraser Clark debut on Saturday? A little bit. Obviously the trio, the GB heavyweights, Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, and Fraser Clark. I can quite easily say that Fraser Clark is the least interesting, I find, out of those three. But, he's another addition to the heavyweight landscape. Yeah, I've only seen a handful of his amateur fights. I saw the fight between him and Joe Joyce in the amateurs. Watch that. That's a good fight. Amateur fights aren't always good, but that one's pretty good. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on him. And I can't imagine that putting him with anyone good. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. Jordan, Eubank versus Cash, who wins? Yeah, Felix Cash. I'm not sure how I feel about Felix Cash. A good, solid British Commonwealth level fighter. I haven't seen enough of him. I'm not sure how good his boxing ability is. But the thing is about Felix Cash, and a lot of his stablemates have said this, is he's a mean guy. And look at Felix Cash, look at his eyes. You can tell that's a man who who loves the idea of inflicting pain upon people. And now he's obviously in the right business, but technically, I think he's maybe just a little bit basic. But that being said, Eubank Jr., in case you haven't seen my post-fight video of his fight against Williams, I wasn't really impressed with Eubank Jr. because if you took away the knockdowns, he didn't really do much. And he's doing some things better, but I feel like he's doing some things like there's been no change in other aspects. So I would have to go to Eubank just because I feel like he's a bit more experienced. I'm not sure if Cash has the attributes that unsettle or have unsettled Eubank in the past. So yeah, I'd go for Eubank right now. But who knows? Maybe Cash will step up in his next fight, blow the guy away, and I'll change my mind. But yeah, I'd go Eubank for now. Would you like to see a Billy Joe Saunders versus Ryder rematch? Mr. Relax, to be honest, I wouldn't. I'd rather see Ryder go on to fight someone else at super middleweight, someone better than Billy Joe Saunders, because I was really impressed with Ryder's performance in the Danny Jacobs fight. And maybe eventually, if Saunders can come back and have some decent form, and show that he's still got something left, then maybe it's always good to maybe have a rematch and see who really is the best if they're both at world level. But no, my priority would be to see Ryder go on and fight someone else. I do think there are some good fights for him. And I'll get onto my scorecard and my take of the Ryder Jacobs fight in a bit. Let me just answer these questions. Oh, already answered that one. Dalmas, if Andrade fights Zach Parker, is that one of, if not the best names on his resume? Just to clarify, do you mean that Zach Parker would be the best name on Andrade's resume, or vice versa? If you could just let me know and I'll get back to you. Thomas Duffin, Kell Brook has said his performance against Crawford was affected from having a circumcision 3 weeks before the fight. Do I see any truth in that? I think the less said about that, the better. But hey, look, to be fair, if realistically speaking, if you have a circumcision, it's bound to be quite sore. You know, you've got your boxing trunks on, you got your cup, your groin guard, the sweat. It can't be comfortable. So who knows? Who knows? I think if anyone bumps into Kell Brook, someone should ask him, like, look, is that actually the truth? Because I've never actually heard this. I think you might be pulling my leg, Thomas. But yeah, I can't possibly comment. Jay, thoughts on Chris Congo? Do you see him going anywhere? Yeah, I see Chris Congo going somewhere. So Chris Congo got some very good attributes, very long and tall for the weight. I think he just needs to loosen up a bit, become a bit more dynamic. He's got some good athleticism. He's quick. I think naturally he has the leverages to generate quite a lot of power, like long power, like Tommy Hearns kind of power. If his technique is dialed in, I think from what I've seen of Congo, he's a little bit too side on, and that can affect your kind of turning over your shots and rotating your weight. But I think Congo at a bare minimum. Actually, let me not say the bare minimum, but I see him reaching European level. If he can go beyond that, I'd be kind of surprised. But it's all about timing, to quote Tunde Ajayi and Anthony Yard, Lions. Big up, Devon. Big up. I'm doing well, bro. I hope you can stay and talk boxing with us. We're just jamming. How are you doing, Devon, anyway? Sports Fan 1, Richard Torres Jr. used to beat Anderson as amateurs. I watched Tom Torres Jr. vlogs whilst the Olympics. Have to say, came across very likable. I suspect he might become another star. I've heard that name, Richard Torres Jr. I don't think I've ever seen him fight. But thanks for the heads up. I'll do some research. I'll see what I can find of him. Joyce versus Clark's a hell of an amateur fight. Joyce truly looked like a juggernaut in the fight. Yeah, Joe Joyce. he is just the juggernaut. There's never been a more appropriate name. He is a juggernaut. But the thing is, even though he's a juggernaut, he's got skills. He's got skills that so many people don't want to give him credit for. And yeah, it looks kind of weird, but the function and the movement quality is it's up there. Joe Joyce is serious, man. One of my favorite heavyweights to watch, actually. I actually saw him fight live um, when he fought Stiverne on the undercard of Eubank Jr. versus Degale. And he gave Stiverne a hiding. It was brutal because I was fairly close to the ring as well. And you could just see the expression on Stiverne's face. And he was not having a good time. Jay, how much do you think the Ukrainian dance lessons affected and improved Loma's footwork in boxing? And do you think young fighters should do something similar? Perhaps dancing can enhance footwork. Well, it really depends. It's like on a hierarchy because whenever you do kind of training and preparation for a sport, you always want to prioritize the sport-specific training and activities. However, you can supplement it with other things that are a bit more broad. And if that's dancing, that's dancing. So, of course, if you do it young, you're more likely to kind of consolidate those what do you call it? Those patterns and that skill of controlling your entire body. So yeah, I do think I'd encourage people to do that. I think the more experienced you get as well, you start to learn how you can manipulate your training in boxing. That is, excuse me, I'm just going to adjust myself. But a lot of the time, boxing is very dogmatic in some spots where people believe that you have to train, you have to run 3, 4, 5 miles every day, you have to do your road work, you have to do X amount of rounds on this and that, and it's, oh, don't touch weights because you get too bulky. And it's just like, that doesn't really make any sense. Like, for example, with the road work, when I was boxing, and as I say, like, take what I say with a pinch of salt because I was no great shakes, but I was in good condition. I could spar quite easily, half an hour, like that's the amount of the same length as like a lot of pro fights. Obviously sparring, whatnot. But I, after a couple of years, stopped doing long distance running because I used to run a 5K pretty much every other day to get my conditioning for boxing, like kind of base, non-sport specific. And I asked myself, in training, be it in the gym or you're training athletes, whatever, you're taught that specificity is king. It's the key principle. Whether you're trying to build strength, hypertrophy, so muscle, whatever, power, speed, so on, you have to be specific. Long distance running, it doesn't resemble a boxing match. So what I did from then on, I found a hill near my house, and I'd set a 3-minute timer on my phone. I'd sprint up the hill at max intensity as fast as I could, and I'd jog down. I'd do 3 to 5 3-minute rounds of that, and I could go on for ages and ages and ages. But then I also used to do a lot of body sparring because you don't want to full spar every day. That is a recipe for a short career. I'll say that. So body sparring can help you. You can use it in a technical way, but you can also get in a lot of conditioning, kind of using the same movements as you would if you're in a fight or sparring, but with limiting the blows to your head. So yeah, but to answer your question, do what you feel works for you. To be fair, as long as the trade-off between time invested and adaptation is good and it's worth your while, do it. If that's Ukrainian dance, that's Ukrainian dance. If it's ballet, So, but it's all about disregard dogma and find what's best for you in boxing, in training in general, and in life. That's today's philosophy. Dalmas, finally get back round to you. Andrade's resume. Zach Parker? No, I wouldn't say so. I'd say Wally Katundokwa. No, I'm joking. Probably Liam Williams is the best guy on Andrade's resume, unless I'm missing someone else. Actually, did Andrade, did he fight Suleski, the Polish guy? I can't remember. Let me check, actually, because Suleski is a good fighter. He was a very good fighter. Well, you know, he was good. He was solid. Underrated. Good boxer, though. Middle. Demetrius Andrade. Let's go for his record. Yeah, so Liam Williams. Yeah, he did fight Suleski. Suleski is a good fighter. Yeah, I don't think Zach Parker's a good enough name. He's close to Liam Williams, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's the best. Who should Billy Joe Saunders' comeback opponent be? Well, it depends where Billy Joe Saunders is mentally, to be fair. Billy Joe Saunders is someone who historically has lacked discipline. I've got a true story about Billy Joe Saunders. When I was my coach, around the time I was still boxing, he kind of made a comeback and he had a pro fight at a very famous venue in London. And in the crowd, naturally, you see other fighters. And Billy Joe Saunders was there. And this fight was in October of 2015. And it was a matter of weeks before his fight with Andy Lee, his first title fight. And I apologize, it's very windy if it's picking up. Sorry about that. But and Billy Joe Saunders, I shit you not, he looked like 14 stone. He's a middleweight and he looked like he was 14 stone. And that just showed me this guy, he has no discipline outside the ring. And I don't know what kind of state he's going to be in now after that Canelo loss. But comeback opponent, no one who can punch hard. That's what I'd say. He probably needs a good name, but not someone who can do him damage. Because obviously I'm saying this from a perspective of someone who'd be looking to get Billy Joe Saunders on the road to recovery. But that's me assuming that his eye injury, that his fractured socket, was legit, because I don't think it's been proven. I don't remember seeing any x-ray. But yeah, it's tough to say. Devin Sinclair, Kell Brook does Sheffield dancing training with Dominic Ingle naked on the beach. A bit different to Ukrainian dancing, but has got him a world title. Yeah. Hey, man, look, what happens in Sheffield stays in Sheffield. That's all I'm going to say. Mr. Relax. Marco versus Congo, both at Sky Sports. Marco, I feel, has developed as a fighter in his past couple of fights. And I feel like he just has a bit more momentum than Congo. I think it'd be a close fight. But I'd probably favour Marco. I feel like he'd maybe just rough up Congo, out hustle him. Yeah. I feel like Marco would probably take that one. Jordan Anderson. Do you think you could beat Campbell Hatton if given a whole training camp to secure the bag? Could I beat Campbell Hatton? Now, I am just a man, so my ego is screaming, of course you could. But then I remember yesterday, I was on the pads for about 5 minutes and I felt stiff as a board. So, you know, I reckon so. Because I'm a lot bigger than Campbell Hatton. I've never seen him in person, but I'm pretty sure I'm a lot bigger than him. So, imagine if I did, though, and I just get called a bully. That's not a good look. But, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure he's in much better condition than I am. At least fighting fitness, you know. Do you think we see the loser of Khan versus Brook fight again? Also, what would it do to Brook's resume if he beat Khan? Does a win over Khan hold any merit now, and vice versa for Khan over Brook? I think if Khan beating Brook is a bigger achievement than Brook beating Khan, because Khan has been, he's a little bit further along the line in terms of like being washed up. And yeah, I feel like I don't want to say like, because I wanted to say, oh, Brook really should be winning this fight, but it's not as simple as that. But I think, regardless, I think either man, if they lose, I think that's it. Call it quits. Um, but yeah, it does kind of. I think it holds merit because it's bragging rights, you know. But in terms of the context of when they fought and whatnot, it's, you know, I don't think it trumps the Sean Porter win. And of course, I do feel that Khan beating Brook at this stage is more impressive than Brook beating Khan. Just my opinion, though. What do you think, Devon? Billy Joe should retire. One of the most boring fighters I've seen. He's talked like a Prime Tyson for 10 years, only to decision every single time. One time he stepped up, he quit. Yeah, it's not good. Like, he's a good, solid fighter. But you know, he hasn't really done much. Yeah, he became a two-weight world champion, but I mean, he did beat Andy Lee. I've got to give him credit because Andy Lee's a good fighter, or was a good fighter. But yeah, he didn't really conduct himself like a champion. He wasn't on job a lot of the time. He was quite lackadaisical. He beat Lemieux, but I think stylistically he was always going to beat Lemieux. I didn't like going into that fight. I didn't really have many doubts. Yeah, Lemieux's a puncher, but he needs you to stand in front of him. And even then, someone like Golovkin was in front of him for the most part, but just pummeled him with a jab the whole time. So yeah, Billy Joe Saunders. Oh yeah, and he's second. He's super middleweight world title against Tutti Frutti. That's what everyone was calling him. Tutti Frutti at Stevenage football stadium. Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders, kind of a little bit of a dud maybe. Because I remember early in his career, he looked like he was going to go on to be something really special. But hey, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard. Dalmas, do you think Conor Benn versus Chris Van Heerden is a step backwards for Ben? Yeah, I do. I do think it is, or maybe not a step down, but like it's at the same level that he's been fighting at. So if they have this fight and then they announce another big fight afterwards, I think it can be excused. But if he fights and beats Chris Van Heerden and then fights someone at the same level or lower, then it's like you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm not liking the look of this. But Chris Van Heerden I think he's going to have a decent size advantage over Conor Benn, and he's a southpaw, and he's experienced. So it will be another good gauge. I expect Conor Benn to win, but it'll be another good gauge to see where Ben is right now. Jordan Anderson, Marky versus David Avanesian. You know what? Tough fight. I think it'd be quite the scrap. And I'd have to favour Marku, to be fair. David Avanesian, he's good. Like, he's tenacious and he's rough and rugged, but I don't think he's the biggest puncher. And I don't think he's the most skilled. Marku, on the other hand, he can mix it up. He can fight. He's becoming quite a decent boxer. He's quite mobile. I think he's a little bit on the short side, but I don't think David Avanesian's a particularly big guy. But yeah, I think it'd be a rough one just because David Avanesian, you know, if he feels like he's being outskilled, he'll just trudge forward and rough you up, you know, just ask Josh Kelly. How many legendary heavyweight knockout artists do you think a prime Kevin Johnson could take to a decision? I reckon Johnson in survival mode could have survived against almost any heavyweight ever. Maybe. It's just so difficult to say because there are going to be so many heavyweights of yesteryear who didn't really get a look in, even though they were tremendous knockout artists and stuff. But I think, yeah, Kevin Johnson, he's kind of like the epitome of what would you say, parking the bus and just investing all his points into defense. Yeah, prime Kevin Johnson was quite slippery. So, but that being said, could he stand up to a prime George Foreman? Could he stand up to an old George Foreman? I don't know, but yeah, these kind of retrospective these retrospective boxing questions, they're always the hardest ones. But I think for the most part he would be able to decision a lot of them, or at least go the distance rather. Jordan Anderson, if you KO Campbell Hatton and Ricky Hatton came out of retirement to avenge his son, would you take the fight? Yeah, absolutely. I'd like that once again, Jordan, you're trying to make me out to be a bully. First, I'm picking on Campbell Hatton, who's smaller than me. Then his middle-aged dad, who's had a beer belly for the past decade and a half. What? And then I'm supposed to take him on as well? People are going to be like, fight someone like who's on your level. Either that or Jordan, you don't rate me at all, and you think that these guys are going to flatten me, and you hate Outmatch boxing, so you just want to see me laying on my back. But yeah, I would fill out the Manchester Arena. Bit of a freak show fight, but hey, if it pays well. Dalmas, do you have a favorite journeyman? I think this might. Yeah, this has been asked before, and I couldn't give an answer. Though, does Emmanuel Augustus, does he count? Because how many losses did he have? Because he's obviously like a legendary fighter, but he wouldn't get the rub of the green. He'd lose a lot of fights. So, like, would that qualify him as a journeyman? Because he was legit. Yeah. Oh wow. So I didn't think the ratio was that bad. Emmanuel Augustus, 38 wins to 34 losses and 6 draws. Yeah, I'd say he's my favorite journeyman. Yeah. So yeah, I'll give a definitive answer. Emmanuel Augustus. Devon, you should start a YouTube channel, brother. I agree. Devon, we're waiting. We're waiting. You know, the Hat Man Boxing Brotherhood. There's a space, Devon. Nudge, nudge. All right. Do we have any other questions? If not, I'll talk about Jacobs versus Ryder, because I finally watched the fight yesterday, and I finally got a chance to score it. And now I don't know if you guys saw my I don't know if you guys saw my pre-fight video, but I picked Jacobs to win by split decision, and you can watch the video for yourselves. And I said, don't be surprised if there's controversy with people favoring Jacobs or favoring John Ryder, but I picked Jacobs to win. I had the fight 116 to 114 in favor of Ryder. So I had Ryder winning by 2 points. And I had the first round even. I had round 2 to Jacobs, but close. Round 3 to Jacobs. Round 4 and 5 to Ryder. Round 6 to Jacobs, but close. Round 7, 8, and 9 to Ryder. Round 10 even. Round 11, Jacobs, but close. And round 12, I said Ryder, but just about. So I actually had Ryder winning. But to be fair, I did have 2 even rounds. So that could either give Ryder an extra 2 points or extra 2 rounds, or it could give Jacobs an extra 2 rounds and then have it a draw. I think something like that. But it was very close. But overall, I was just more impressed by Ryder. I felt like Ryder took himself to another level. He looked sharp. He looked strong, and yeah, I was very impressed with Ryder. And I'm actually looking forward to see where he goes next. I want to see Ryder fight again. That's how impressed I was. Jacobs just looked early on. His mobility was pretty good. Um, he just kind of lost it. But I think it's because I think he was starting to get quite unsettled by Ryder, who he was cutting off the ring well. Um, Ryder very sneaky on the inside. You see him use the left uppercut a lot, and he was catching Jacobs clean. He buzzed Jacobs. So yeah, Ryder winning that fight, I'm happy with it after watching it myself. I felt he did quite a bit better than Jacobs. Yeah, Devon. I want you guys to get big for. Oh, you're too kind, man. I might do it in the future. I thought about it, but I'm gonna do it. If I'm gonna do it, I want to get good at editing first. Well, yeah, Devon, that's a good point. All I'd say is I started this channel last April, and I hated computers. I mean, I still do. I hate computers, but I just taught myself to edit, and now I'm no editing whiz. But people always say, like, they comment on my videos, "Oh yeah, the editing's really good." So look, if I can do it, you certainly can. So just learn on the job. That's what I'd say. But of course, you value your time. I'm sure you got other commitments and stuff, but we'll support you whenever you need it. Mr. Relax, Skelton, Klitschko, Povetkin, any other former kickboxers who did well in boxing? Well, currently there's Marku. I guess you could say he's doing quite well. He hasn't done anything much yet, but he's becoming a pretty good fighter. Kickboxers, Dylan White. He's doing well. Hasn't won a title yet. Hasn't fought for a title, but he's a pay-per-view star, at least in the UK. Seems to be in line to get his shot. Did Jarrell Miller, did he do kickboxing? I mean, he hasn't really done well. He's a dirty, rotten cheat, actually, but he's relatively high profile. So there are a few. I think a lot of the time people do experiment with other martial arts. Like before I started boxing, not to say that I'm on the level of these guys, but before I started boxing, I did judo and like a little bit of karate, but boxing was the the one that really gelled with me. So yeah, it's quite common, explore the sport that you want to do, see what goes best. Jordan Anderson, Ryder versus Rosado. Well, based on that performance against Jacobs, I would think Ryder does well. I think Ryder's really kind of found himself. Yeah, I think Ryder's kind of settled into his like place, because before Ryder, I feel like not many people kind of cared about Ryder. And when I say that, I'm talking like 2013, 14, 15. I'm going off of memory, but people didn't care about Ryder. And I think because there was like such little hype around him, I think he kind of stopped caring about himself, and he just had no motivation. But he's picked up some wins, and he's been on some higher profile cards, and it's like he's finally getting some momentum, and it's going to reflect itself in his performances. So yeah, I'd pick Ryder, to be fair. Dalmas Manbun, what do I think is next for Ryder? I wouldn't say, like, does that performance against Jacobs, does it warrant a world title shot? I don't know. But I'm actually going to check the super middleweight rankings. Excuse me, I keep burping tonight. I've got some gas. Sorry, that's very unpleasant, but I keep having to stop what I'm saying. I wouldn't really want to see Ryder against Alvarez just yet. Maybe if he can keep up this form. You know what? I'd like to see Ryder in against Benavidez. Something tells me that that'd be a good fight. Something tells like just a feeling, but yeah. Boxing on the Edge. Yeah, you said Jerome Miller. I meant to ask you, have you ever met Jerome Miller? Have you ever come across him in any of the gyms? Be interesting if you have. Jordan Anson, do you think you do any career reviews? Um, Probably not. At least not right now, because I have to give respect where it's due. People like Hatman, um, I know Beats back in the day, like 2014, 2015, he used to do career reviews, or career review type videos. Those guys, especially like say Hatman, he does his 3 hour long Mike Tyson review, and I couldn't hold up to that. I just don't have enough knowledge. I haven't been watching the sport long enough. I know the sport, but to review someone's career in depth like he can, I just can't do it. So, like, I could give you a pretty in depth review of Anthony Joshua's career up to the present day, but that's because I've watched it through its entirety, as many people have. So I can't really give a unique take, you know. And the best thing about Hatman's career reviews is that he actually gives personal anecdotes, and he can correctly and accurately give you, the popular perception of a fighter at the time. I can't do that. So yeah, I'm going to stay in my lane. Respect where respect is due. Sports fan one. Caleb Plant did kickboxing. Yeah, I heard about that. I heard about it, but I wasn't sure. Like to what capacity was he? Like an international kickboxer, professional? I don't know. But yeah, and he's done fairly well for himself. He fought for the undisputed super middleweight title. It's not too bad. Thank you, Devon. Guys, in case you don't know, Devon, this guy, if he's the biggest hype man going. If you ever feel down, if you ever feel like you're not good enough, Devon, he'll make you feel good enough. So shout out to you, Devon. Jordan, why doesn't Hatman ever shout out Ade? I've heard Ade big up Hatman. Eye emoji. I can't say. You'd have to ask Hatman himself. Yeah. Speaking of which, to answer your question, I don't know, but I saw Ade not long ago. I was on the train with him, and obviously he doesn't know who I am. Not many people know who I am, because my channel is minuscule. But yeah, he had his yellow beanie on, so yeah, I bumped into him. Yeah, trained with Miller for years. He used to destroy everyone in the gym. Was a little lazy though. Was cool with me. I was a bit taken aback with all the drug stuff. I didn't see that coming. Yeah, because it wasn't just like, oh, he's tested positive for traces of whatnot. It was like PED after PED after PED, and it was just like, boy, big. Forget about Big Baby. He's Big Pharma. But yeah, I mean, I saw some videos with Miller when he was just having interviews, and yeah, he's brash, but like it seemed like on a one-to-one level, he'd be like a pretty cool guy. So yes, but yeah, just a dirty cheat, of course. None left teas. Big up the channel. Big up you, sir. Thank you for that. Hope you can join us. Talk boxing. We've been on for a little while, but we'll go for probably go for like another 20 minutes. So yeah, good to have you here, man. Good to have you here. Boxing on the Edge. Which other fighters have you come across? Like in the gyms and spoken to and stuff? Be cool. I think everyone would like to hear, So just leave it in the chat. So yeah, I've already given my take on Jacobs versus Ryder. Felt like Ryder did quite enough to win, deserved it. Spoken about Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. In case you missed it, you can watch the recording of this, or you can watch my video that will probably come out after this, or maybe tomorrow. I'll see. Adam Kovanovsky versus Charles Martin. Oh, that's a hard one. Because Kovanovsky beat him before, didn't he? That was that UD? Let me check. Yeah, 10-round UD. But the thing is, yeah, it's really a question of who has the harder defeat to come back from. Because Charles Martin got starched by Luis Ortiz, whereas Kovanovsky got beaten up by Hellenius. That's hard. I'd say, call me crazy, but I'd probably have to go with Charles Martin just because I think his style would kind of lend him a bit more. I think he just has an easier time stylistically. Yeah, Kovanovsky, his style is just too dumb, to say the least. It's too dumb. All right, Devon. What year did you start watching boxing? I did around 2008 as a casual, watching the likes of Amir Khan, Tyson Fury, David Price on ITV and CH5. I remember watching Amir Khan versus Maklovsky. So I started becoming like a big... It's a strange story. It's a strange one because I started to really seriously watch boxing. And when I say serious, I mean like if I wasn't at school, I was watching boxing. Like I'd get home from school and I'd watch boxing. Even when I was at school, if I was on a computer at school, I'd be watching boxing. I wouldn't be doing work, I'd be watching boxing. But before that, so before like 2012, when I started actually devoting myself to boxing, I was only interested in 90s, 80s boxing. So I'd kind of keep an eye on boxing headlines, but I wouldn't watch it. I'd only like pretty much exclusively watch 90s and 80s boxing, which is kind of odd because it was like I was a young guy and I was just like stuck in the past, like stuck in boxing past. But yeah, it's I'd say properly, like seriously, about 2012, because that's when I had like a vested interest in watching boxing because I was watching it to get better. By that point, it wasn't just entertainment. It was like, what can I learn? My dad was saying, fucking hell, Khan is a beast. I mean, Khan, he has some decent highlight reels. Yeah, and he was a young guy. Khan, put into perspective, Khan was an Olympic silver medalist at 17. That is crazy. 17 years old, and he's an Olympic silver medalist. Mad. Jordan, what do you think of Sergio Martinez? He was the fighter that got me into boxing. Sergio Martinez, an artist, a very talented fighter, but I feel like probably just started too late. And then were his highest level fights. I mean, I don't know. Martinez got a lot of highlight reel kind of, he's got a good highlight reel, when he knocked out Paul Williams. And Paul Williams was serious. He was a serious operator. Yeah. Martinez, very talented. Someone who I haven't watched too much of over the years, but I always liked his style as well. Very relaxed. I always like relaxed fighters. The way everything just flows. Yeah. And it's understandable that he got you into boxing because Martinez is one of those guys that makes boxing almost look easy. So it's like, oh, wow, maybe I can do this. Boxing on the Edge. Seeing these guys train in the gyms when I never spoke to them. Spence, Wilder, B-Hop, Eric Morales, Frampton, Cotto, Degale, Malinaji, Bellew. Wow, that is quite a roster. I mean, just seeing them up close, obviously you can. It's better than seeing them on a screen. So yeah, that's. I mean, I've seen out of these names, Degale and Bellew. Haven't seen any of the others. So that's pretty cool, man. Many used to have the media day at the gym before they fought about who's. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So is that Gleason's? Am I thinking of the right gym? Gleason's? Or I can't remember. I'm not so clued up on the American gyms. You remind me of myself. I was a hardcore football fan and knew everything about football. So when I first joined, yeah, see, that's interesting because, you know, I'm one of the people where I don't have any other sports that I really dedicated myself to. Funny story actually, because oh yeah, it was Gleason's. Cool. Before I got into boxing, as I said, I did judo, but that's when I was really young. I did karate. That was when I was a little bit older. That was probably like 2 years before I started boxing, because I was like, I'm in my early teens now. I'm like 12, 13. And look, I say I'm 12 and 13 or 12, 13, that kind of age. And my thought process obviously reflects my age. It's very immature, but I was running, I was on my school's track team, and I was, I was going to like championships. I wasn't anything special, but I was a pretty decent runner. I was quite versatile as well. Um, I was able to do like 100 and 200, but then I kind of got older. I got a bit taller and bigger, and I started transition over to like 400 meters, but I was still good on like the relay. And so I had like a decent amount of success with athletics, with track and field. But then I also really like boxing, and I'm doing them at the same time. I'm training for both, dedicating myself to both, or at least trying to. And I asked myself, is like, right, I'm about to have my last athletic season, but I'm also boxing right now. And when I say season, I mean I'm about to have a championship. And I'm asking myself, what do I want to dedicate myself to? Do I want to become uh, do I want to become a sprinter, an athlete, and learn to run away, or do I want to become a boxer and learn to fight? That was my thought process at the time. It's so childish. I thought that the sport I did determined who I was as a person, and of course, I chose boxing and ended up like sinking over a decade into it. But yeah, little anecdote, little story. Dalmas, thoughts on Victor Ortiz? He was one of the fighters that got me into boxing along with Pacquiao, Floyd, Miguel, Cotto, and Khan. So Victor Ortiz, someone who, it's just a shame that he has no heart and questionable punch resistance, because I look at Ortiz and I'm like, yeah, he's not the greatest right now, but there's a lot to work with. Like he had some good moves, Ortiz, but he just couldn't hold it together. Yeah, but yeah, there was something about me that always really liked. There's something I wanted to see Ortiz. I wanted to see him succeed because he looked like he could be something pretty special, but he just didn't have the mindset. Didn't have the mindset, bro. Degale versus Froch, who wins? Before, when Froch was active, I would have said Froch. Not because it'd be like, because he'd probably be able to like outstrength and damage Degale. But in the Badu Jack fight, I feel like Degale proved that he had a chin, because from what I saw in his career, in any of his fights, I never really saw him. Never really saw him like have a gut check. But in that Badu Jack fight, it was like, oh wow, James Degale, he's not just tough, but he is teak tough. This man, yeah, he's defense is a little bit but he's got a chin and he's got heart, because the way he fought that Badu Jack fight, tremendous. So I think he's slippery enough to challenge Froch stylistically, but also probably tough enough to stand up to Froch and you know, not get cobra'd. So yeah, I'd say 2014 Froch versus 2014 Degale. I'd have to go with Degale, because I feel like that's when Degale started to go upwards. You know, he started to apply himself a bit more, took himself to the next level. Hatman is right about you, Henry. Okay. Yeah, Henry, man. You see, you guys, like, a couple of you guys have said that you like listening to my voice. Listen to Boxing on the Edge. He just, honestly, Boxing on the Edge, the way you talk, it's like a story, you know? You should do some kind of voiceover or voice acting or something like that. Yeah, Devon, you miss every shot that you don't take. Never a truer word spoken. Never a true word spoken. Something that many people, including myself, suffer with, you know. Oh, I'm not going to be good enough. Let me not try. No, you try. You're shit. That's good. You know, I started this channel because it was last year, last April, and I was like, I've got so much time on my hands. So I went out of my way to find something that I didn't think I'd be good at, or historically I'd avoided. That was editing videos, speaking on the internet, you know, like providing my opinion and stuff, because I'm not a very active person, like on social media, or even say, if any of you guys are in the Discord, you'll see that compared to the other users, I'm not on there much. I watch the conversation, but I'm quite reserved. So yeah, it's you know, don't doubt yourself, guys. Just have a crack, because if you fuck up, you learn what you have to do better, you know. But if you don't try, you don't learn. So but it's tough, you know, because we're all men, we've got egos, and yeah. I'll stop there. How does Canelo do against the older 168-pounders Degale, Froch, Eubank Senior, Ben Calzaghe? All right. I think you probably see where I'm going with this, but Degale and Calzaghe, I imagine, are the toughest fights for him. I think Froch is a bit not as tough, because he's a bit easier to get to, but he's a lot bigger. Eubank Senior and Ben. It depends which version of Ben, because late in Ben's career he was kind of started boxing more, kind of. I think he calmed down a little bit. If you guys haven't seen, you might have though, the footage of Nigel Benn sparring with Roberto Duran. He looks good. He looks very good. It kind of makes you wonder, like, oh, why didn't you fight like this in your actual fights? But yeah, so I'd say Degale and Calzaghe, the hardest fights. Froch is kind of middle. I think Eubank Senior and Ben would be the easiest fights for Canelo. I think you'd have a pretty good chance of beating all of them other than Degale and Calzaghe. Then between those two, I think Calzaghe probably is the hardest one to beat. Jordan, have you been watching Poorly TV on my YouTube? No, I only saw that. I only found that channel. It was recommended in Hatman's Discord like yesterday. I haven't had a chance to watch it. Believe it or not, I'm kind of busy. You know, I'm sitting here on my ass talking to you guys for an hour and a half, but I do have some things to do. And you know, like in boxing, there are so many things you have to watch. Like you have to watch last weekend's fights. Well, you don't have to, but say because I'm doing the channel, like I'm reviewing last weekend's fights. I'm doing my videos in the lead up for this weekend's fights. I'm having a live stream, and I've got like personal commitments and stuff. But I think I'll get around to it sooner or later. Does he have like guests on, or is it just him and like a host? Jordan, if you could let me know, that'd be kind of cool. Mr. Relax. When the scene was around, I couldn't believe what I was watching. The boxer's defense was hands at his waist and that power punch too. Yeah. A lot of people, I think a lot of people stateside, they don't seem to give Naz the credit he deserves, because, and Hatman of course did a career review, very good career review, and yeah, Naz was a legend, and someone who to this day you can have casuals, like young casuals as well, so people who weren't even alive in the 90s, they know who Naz is, and they're casual fans. So that's, he's up there. He's up there. And he was something special, but I think his mindset, Hatman pointed this out, and it's a good point, because he would always say, when he's squaring off against fighters, like, you can't beat me. Like Allah, because obviously Naz is a Muslim, say Allah won't let me lose. But then was it Barrera came around, and that must have shattered his entire self-perception. Crazy. But he had a good career though, and he was a phenomenal talent. Okay, so Boxing on the Edge. It's Paulie TV's good. Is it worth a watch? Does he have guests on, or does he just talk? Like, is it like Teddy Atlas's podcast? Because I used to watch that, but I don't. There are just so many episodes, and I was already so far behind that I just couldn't catch up, and life gets in the way. And Teddy Atlas, I feel like once you've heard a couple of hours of him, you kind of know what he's going to say for the rest of it. But I wasn't too keen on that host. Was his name something Rydell? John Ryder or something? The co-host on Teddy Atlas's podcast. I didn't like him. Yeah, there's something about him I felt was off. Just me though. All right. Yeah, he has guests. Box of. I've been watching. Oh, sorry, I'm losing it. Yeah, he has guests. Does a few solo videos, but had the Vargas family on there recently. Yeah, that co-host is well annoying. Yeah, I don't like him. I'm not liking him. Devon, who's your favorite box from the 80s and 90s? Mine's James Toney. Toney versus McCallum. Fights were some of the best. Yeah, like you kind of answered it there. Toney versus McCallum is one of my favorite fights of all time. Toney and McCallum are two of my favorite fighters of all time. Mike Tyson, obviously. Who else from the 90s? I was always a fan of. I liked George Foreman when he came back. There's something about George Foreman that I just like. Who else from the 90s? Oh man, but I'd say those are my two main ones. Like you, James Toney, McCallum. If I think of any more, I'll come back. I learned how a boxing match is scored on Paulie TV after being very confused by the Felix Cash fight. Yeah, see, scoring's one of those things. It's not something that many people understand. I don't even like. I have an idea of it in my head. I'm not sure if it's the clearest and most accurate idea, but yeah, okay, I might have to check that out. But see, the thing is as well, it's like it's always going to be kind of subjective, because it's going to be colored by your experience in boxing. For example, like many things are, if you look at a fighter who's really advanced and you don't necessarily understand the subtleties that they do, you're not going to think that's important, when really it could be, the difference between them winning and losing. All I say is my coaching philosophy is I teach You know, it's important, like when you're working with a young person, especially, or I mean anyone, but especially a young person, because they are they often have quite an immature view of the world and therefore boxing as well. Boxing isn't punching. That's what I teach them. I teach them that when you watch boxing, when you see a punch that lands, that is the fighter's prize. That is your prize for being intelligent and setting up your punches and controlling your opponent. The punch is the prize. You have to put in all the work that comes before it. That's my perception. And so therefore that kind of maybe colors the way I score a fight. But I mean, at the end of the day, if a fighter is landing punches and not getting hit in return, he's winning a round. But then it just starts to get a bit murky when there's like, okay, what was the volume of punches? What was the frequency of punches? What type of punches? But I'm no professional judge, so who cares? Teddy Atlas knows the sport of boxing, but he isn't up to date on boxing for the most part. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the feel, you know. That he does give an interesting insight, but you do feel like, okay, maybe he's not really actually watching, and he's kind of guessing, kind of like based on his experience back in like decades gone by, but it doesn't necessarily apply here. So, yeah, I understand what you mean. And I feel like you get a lot of pro fighters who are like that because, you know, everyone wants to find out, oh, this legendary fighter, what do you think on this upcoming fight? And sometimes they say something like they give their take, and it's like, bro, do you even know who's fighting? Because that's like so far removed from what is likely to happen in a fight. But, you know, listen to what people have to say. If they talk rubbish, don't listen anymore, you know? Let's open a gym together. Henry will train the fighter. I will be the customato and I'll sweep the floor. Witness greatness. I'm no psychological expert. You know, I don't have the understanding of boxing psychology or psychology for that matter as customato. I'm very much to give you an insight. Like the psychological aspect is actually something that doesn't really come that naturally to me. I'm more of like a technical, tactical, biomechanical kind of guy. But yeah, that's just me. Right, guys, I think I'm going to bring this one to an end because we're just approaching hour and what's that? 35 minutes. Right, I see some comments come through. Do you like Hyde and Akinwande, Lewis, Bruno? Only see. Oh yeah, Lennox Lewis. How could I forget? I really like Lennox Lewis. The other three, not so much. Lewis, especially when Lewis had lost a couple of times. I feel like, so I guess it wouldn't be the '90s version of Lewis. It'd be the early 2000s. But when he had a lot of craft, he was very satisfying to watch. The skill from a big man as well. Good athlete. So yeah, Lennox Lewis definitely. Oh, I appreciate the compliment. I'm articulate and have a good ASMR voice. Oh, you know, that's made my day. And also having you guys here on the stream with me has made my day. So thank you guys. I had a hell of a time as always. I really enjoyed it. Hope you did. And maybe another live stream next week, something like that. We'll see. But thank you guys for tuning in and spending your free time this Wednesday evening with me. And keep an eye out for the Kell Brook versus Khan pre-fight video, probably drop in a little bit. But yeah, thank you guys, and all the best. Have a great week.